Exceptional Radio.
Good evening. July. Still feels like April to me for some reason. I think it's because it's all the rain. It just keeps raining, and it's not a bad thing. It's good, right? All the extra in the water. It's going to restore the water tables and all that stuff. But it's raining like everywhere. It's raining in the desert. It's raining in the mountains. It's raining in the plains. I've read about more floods happening in the past week than is reasonable. I'm not sure what's going on anymore. It's just like this isn't the summer weather I expected at all. At all. In fact, it's like the opposite. Oh no, that's not true. I expected humid and hot, but not the rain.
Yeah, the rain is definitely unexpected, and at the levels, which is, I think, it's devastating on one hand, but I think we would have had a bunch of wildfires and a lot more heat deaths
Oh, definitely.
if we didn't have the rain and the overcast.
But to watch video footage of in like entire swaths of places just getting washed away because they had no flood management, and not even and like like places that probably don't get that much rain ever.
Well, I think we're hitting the wall of uninsured America that is on land, because I think when you have cars on the road that are uninsured, we get a lot more experience of them being uninsured because they get in accidents.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even then, it's like areas that of homes or businesses that are uninsured don't get hit often, so it's not really exposed. But I think this season is hitting the flood zones, which a lot of places don't have flood insurance.
I wonder if having like years of essentially drought and normal water consumption have just led to like dry surface conditions, which would make flooding worse. Like I know that in my just as my yard, for example, places that are like have gravel or have been taken down to clay, when it rains, those just you can see the water running across it. Whereas areas that have grass or actual soil and not just clay uh, those tend to get soupy. I wonder how much of it is like a result of expansion of civilization and development of infrastructure.
Man, I came to the realization today, speaking of that, we have to stop treating right wing people as if they're operating, whether it's in good faith or in bad faith, we got to stop treating them as if they're operating as adults and they're operating as like bad kids because this conspiratorial minded group, on the one hand, does not believe in climate change, but on the other hand, believes in man made modified weather, natural disaster, well, artificial disasters. So it's like I almost threw up earlier because trying to hold those two thoughts in my head at once created such a cognitive dissonance that I physically could not, and I had to like get on both knees and like prevent myself from like having an aneurysm and all my
Man,
organs exploding at once
have you
from the
seen
dissonance.
have you seen footage of the cloud seeding facilities? Like when they're in operation, I mean they're like huge. They're the size of freaking like nuclear power
Right. I
plants.
mean,
They're
I know cloud seeding exists.
they're
Of course.
so
I'm not.
gigantic. No, 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 that's not what I mean. Like, but like those things can't even produce the kind of like regional weather conditions that we're experiencing across like the entire country. Like I was watching videos of the flooding of the subway systems in New York and like just New Jersey flooding. Like like what the hell's going on? I don't think that I think if there was some kind of cloud seeding operation in like the Northeast that was like of the capacity to flood New York City, we would know about it. That would be like all over the news. Like we know that Dubai got washed out because they did some dumb shit, and they were playing with a chemical concentration that was like too much, and the the wind patterns created a kind of a stable cauldron of let's build rain clouds kind of thing. But they were using completely different technology. Also, it didn't cover a region the size of like the United States.
Right. I think some people forget how big the United States and also the world is. Um,
Even the small cloud seeding operations are massive facilities and they're well known. Like, I mean, it's not the kind of thing that's like advertised, but if you go looking for that information, that stuff is all there. You can find locations of cloud seeding operations. It's not like a state secret.
right. But, again, the notion that one can exist and the other one doesn't is like
Oh yeah. Well,
this insane cognitive dissonance that, again, it was like, I can only imagine if time travel exists, it would be what somebody would experience when like they just killed their grandfather or something and like they fucked up their own DNA but through the timeline and it's like ripping apart like on this genetic and quantum level something is like not meshing and that's what again trying to hold those two thoughts at once is like mm, not for me.
I wonder how much like so I understand climate change to be a very complex kind of ecosystem of outcomes that is the result of a lot of factors. There's the sun and our relative position to other objects in space, and just electromagnetic energy coming from space, like just We're being bombarded by radiation all the time. It's just a thing. And then I also know that there's a portion of it that's influenced by the expansion of human infrastructure. Like, we put down.
No. All of it is about the expansion of human
No, I
infrastructure.
know, I
None of
know.
it is about the natural
No, no,
processes.
but like,
That's what climate change itself is, as to why when they were calling it global warming, it was like conflating all of the issues into one name that also made it seem like it was only going in one direction, which then as
okay,
the
so
climate.
so so let me finish. So I understand climate change to be an umbrella term because we also have the term human-induced climate change, which is the actual term for everything that people are arguing about. Because I know that there are people who don't consider like the development of land, like by putting down like metric tons of blacktop. They don't see that as having the same kind of impact as say, you know, pumping hundreds of millions of tons of CO2 in the atmosphere. They don't see that. That's different. Those aren't the same thing. I mean,
No. I mean, I they're not. You're correct in saying that they're not the same thing, but in the umbrella term, what climate change deals with is only really dealing with the human-made ones because the
sure.
natural ones are out of our control, which
Oh
is
yeah,
where
we can't fight. We
that's
can't fight the solar system.
right, exactly. So that's why
No
like
one's building a giant
the
mirror.
well, those idiots, that was one of their proposals
Yeah, I
as
know.
to as whether that was like feasible, not like some fucking jackass proposed it. So it's like, yeah, they thought that would be feasible as a solution to climate change when the discussion was only about warming. And once the discussion became more nuanced to understand that the cycles went in both directions, but the fluctuations in both directions going more extreme was worse. It was not good to have the hottest summers and the coldest winters,
Yeah.
and that like a more stable ecosystem. And by I guess the other implication would be that the climate would be more stable. That's more conducive to surface life having less selective pressure that's just from nature,
Yeah.
or from the weather. That's one. That's basically the line, and so that's where I mean, like,
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the
it's all about the
there's
artificial
the
changes.
way that like the period of solar maximum or solar minimum influences the weather, and that's something we can't do anything about. We just can't. But there's definitely something we can do about just burning fossil fuels just to make plastic toys because they're disposable and they're supposed to be made out of plastic. Or any of the other kind of energy generation like biomass reactors that are literally just pumping carbon into the atmosphere just to heat up some water and turn a turbine. I think that there's actually a very huge just like chasm of a disconnect between like the expansion of just of infrastructure and its influence on the local environment. I mean, I think it's obvious. Just go stand in a nice shaded park, and then walk into the parking lot, and you can feel it like instantly. But I don't think that that's part of the dialogue. Like there's got to be a complete atmospheric toll or whatever we have to pay, the price we pay to run every air conditioner on Earth or every air conditioner in the United States during peak sunlight. Every car, every modern car that I've gotten into, when they start up, they're like ice cold within seconds. What's the price for that? And like when I read about refrigerants, that shit's like got to be reclaimed. You can't release that stuff into the atmosphere. It doesn't go away. It's like it's gonna cycle into a cloud somewhere and then rain down and then get into the water table and then be there fucking ever.
Sorry, my headphone dropped out.
I was just ranting about how like there's so many things out there that like we run all the time, like air conditioning, or we produce plastics, or we the the various ways that we generate energy, and all of these things are essentially like just compounding the issue. Of course, there's no elegant solution to any of it. There's got to be a huge price for running like literally every air conditioner that's running in North America during peak sunlight.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Like
that's
just
when the
immense environmental toll that we don't even. That's when no one talks about it because when air conditioners turn off, people start dying.
right. I mean, I think they do talk about it, but it's become so the conversation has become so distorted that the human sacrifice, or no, I won't even say the human collateral damage that happens from businesses doing it is not then taken into account as a problem if it's affecting humans, but then if it starts to affect the business's bottom line, that's the only time it actually becomes an issue. And that's when dehumanizing people for being poor and not contributing to the economy has these long-term repercussions where like now if you pollute and it only seems to affect poor neighborhoods at first, nobody gives a fuck because those poor people should just move is how Americans frame it in their minds. And this is something that the I'm seeing it's something we know in terms of when statistics are presented, the higher the statistic, the less people care. Versus if an individual face represents something, then that's the only thing that makes people care about it. Like one person dying is way more dramatic than 1,000 people dying or even a million. Like it's crazy to think that a million people dying is less dramatic than one person dying, but it absolutely is in the human mind. Not only, I mean, I know we've discussed the inability to comprehend it before, but it's just seeing it play out in media. It's just one of those things where I see it. It definitely affects people more when you make it one person dying instead of multiples. Like the more the number goes up, the less an individual cares. Have you seen Superman?
Oh yes, I have actually.
So there was that one scene
I
that I'm thinking
thoroughly
of.
enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was
So no
way better than I
spoilers,
expected.
but there was one. There's one scene which I'm like, okay, I see how one person dying is way more impactful than like a bunch of people in the city dying from, you know, the fights in Invincible versus the fights in this Superman movie are not very far apart, but the way that they choose to display death and destruction is such a it's like the gap between them is a canyon, but again it's like Invincible, even the levels of it you become desensitized to it so quickly. It's crazy, Andy Warhol was so right. I mean, I never really questioned how right he was. More so, I didn't really like most of his artwork. Like I think his artwork is still bullshit. Most of it's bullshit. Like I stick by that assessment. I definitely prefer his drawn um works to the art house publisher manufactured. He wasn't actually doing it. He was telling other people what to do. That stuff can fuck off. I don't care if he's Andy Warhol. I still don't like it. But he was right about a lot of shit. And so was Lars. I came to that. I think we all knew inside a long time ago that Lars was right, but I'm old enough now to say it out loud. Like, I'm still gonna pirate stuff. I'm
Dude, that's
definitely
like
still.
the coolest T-shirt ever. Lars was right, and I'm old enough to say it out loud.
Yeah, that is a good T-shirt, but or a fucking bumper sticker, whatever. Yes,
Yeah.
but I've been thinking about that this last week. I was like, God damn it, Lars. Lars was right. Lars was fucking right, man. And it's like it's still not too late, and it'd be funny if after all this time, Lars is what takes down AI. I think that mother of all people, Lars could do it. Like he wasn't able to take down pirate. Nobody would ever be able to like take down piracy. But if somebody was able to undo learning language models, like and large learning language models that like were stealing intellectual property, the only person I would bet money on would be Lars.
Oh man, I mean, so much of AI's heavy metal generated crap is steeped in thrash metal. Like, there's no way that it couldn't have listened to Metallica, or Megadeth, or Slayer, or Anthrax, or Testament. And I can probably keep going with like bands that from that era that have all probably been heavily sampled because I just when I hear the AI stuff, you can just hear it. There's like really unnatural artifacts, like stuff that doesn't come from isn't the result of applying like a tape flange effect selectively. It's like it just added some. They just add things, or you listen closely and you realize you're listening to like I don't know. Smashing Pumpkins chords with different words and slightly different timbre of the instrumentation. And then what else have I heard that was really odd? Oh, nearly all the pop music, it just sounds like electronic music, except it has these weird sounds that like don't sound like synthesizers or samples for that matter. There's something also, and this is something that is really kind of been eating at me. Like when I hear AI guitar sounds, it doesn't sound like a guitar. It sounds like a synthesizer trying to be a guitar, but doing things that are very unguitar like. And most like guitar synthesizers, most of the sample based instruments, they are all very carefully programmed to emulate those kinds of nuance depending on like velocity curve of how one plays the keys or how they program their synthesizer. And so these things are doing stuff that's just like, yeah, guitars don't even make that sound. What effects combination could possibly be making that sound? Like, who would selectively comb filter a band limited, like, sidechain of a guitar? That's not even a. That doesn't even make sense. And especially when there's no. These sounds don't do anything to move the music forward or to help build any kind of energy or emotive energy at all. Like, it just sounds. I don't want to say that it's like the early days of AI language generation when we would just output stuff that was barely like third grade level output. It's close enough. It might fool a lot of people, and if you're just into it for weird psychedelic folksy lyrics, then AI has got you. That's the target audience, I think.
So let me ask you a question. Before when was the first age you started playing guitar?
I think I was like 12.
12. Okay, so you had heard a song before that. What was the first song that you can remember that made you stop what you were doing? That was a guitar that was like it grabbed you and we're like, what the
Oh,
fuck
my
is that?
my my holy shit moment was Stevie Ray Vaughan playing
Stevie
Voodoo
Ray Vaughan.
Child on Austin City Limits.
Okay, so from that point between when you started to play guitar versus now,
I still have holy shit moments. Actually, it's
right? But what? How many times do you think you heard a synthetic sound that you didn't know was synthetic, and you still had a holy shit moment between then those two times, like when you started guitar and now? Because it's like I have a hypothesis, but I
I
want to
mean,
see.
most MIDI guitar always sounds really mathematical to me. It always sounds like machine like, not human. No matter how carefully programmed, it's like no humans can play at the like certain beyond a certain tempo. Like people aren't consistent enough to play like machine music. Um,
Right.
and so there's like little touches, and it's not like taking a loop and then copy pasting it all over a timeline so that you can have you can revisit sections, and where it's just, oh yeah, that's just the same performance over again. It's like weird decisions that don't make sense. They're like, what? That's not even like, who, how would they even play that kind of stuff? Or it's so simple, it's very clearly just lifted off of someone else's music, and then the timbre is wrong. Like that doesn't sound like, what kind of guitar is that even? Like that's what I'm getting at. Like some of these sounds don't even make sense, and I'm not averse to like foreign sounds. I There's a guitar player named Reeves Grables. He's like he was with David Bowie's band for a long time, and he's like one of those pioneers of noise guitar. And so I'm you know I like when guitars make strange noises. I love it when I see some guitar player with a semi complex setup making drum and bass sounds, like the just those crazy unearthly noises. I love that stuff. That's the best. But when it's really weird, like just acoustic processing that doesn't make sense, like not even like these rooms aren't the same, or they use this mic right next to a wall and induced a bunch of, like, I'm gonna keep saying comb filtering because that's a pretty easy one to hear. Um, it just doesn't sound. It's There's something really just not right about it, unnatural. And I say that knowing that we can do crazy cool things with computers, and we can emulate spaces. We can even design spaces in a computer, and then it can, through like convolution process, determine what that space will even sound like, and then change the materials of the surfaces inside that space, and then reapply convolution to know what it's going to sound like, and then use those impulses across like whatever signal source, and then inject that signal into that space. I know these things are all possible, but there's just something unnatural about it. Maybe I'm experiencing a similar effect to like looking at an AI image and knowing there's something just wrong with it. And
So
maybe with like AI images, the same thing. Like the broader audience doesn't care. They just want to see new stuff or hear new stuff.
so I have a theory that in the way that musical theory is reverse engineered from.
Music theory is 100% cultural appropriation. I'm just gonna say that.
I mean, it's cultural appropriation, but it's reverse engineering
Yeah, it's the reason that like
and trying to determine causation when it can only determine
yeah,
correlation.
yeah.
So it's taking this framework that makes itself appear scientific, but's actually pseudoscience at best and full on nonsense at worst. And so I think this is where, at the end of the day, how something is made actually is completely irrelevant. And knowing how things are made can make it easier to determine if something is not quantized or if it's created by programming and if it's not organic. But it doesn't actually matter if it's not great. It can be good, but it has to actually be great to cross a threshold, especially in modern times. There's too much music for like people to spend time with like mediocre songs. So if it's not great in the first 10 seconds or 30 seconds, people aren't going to spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes to see if it's great.
The TikTok study said it's 15 seconds.
Right. I mean, and
15
this is
seconds.
where Warhol said it was 15 minutes. And so at one point he was right, but now it would be 15 seconds as the TikTok data shows. But this is where, to me, again, it's like I'm old enough to acknowledge that Warhol was right, but understanding that I still don't like Warhol's work and nobody's taking the time to understand his philosophy. I'm seeing that trying to play towards that 15 minutes isn't a good idea. It's almost never a good idea, because not only are people going to misinterpret your work, you run the very high risk of being forgotten by short-term memory. And that's where you can be in short term or you can be in long term. You really can't, as humans have proven, you can't be in both at once. And it's one of those things that people want to make themselves feel like they are masters of serialization or chunking or multitasking or remembering or a bunch of other things. But everybody's subject to overloading. And the problem is everybody has short-term memory capacity. Like it's about 30 seconds. In modern times, it's getting closer to 15 seconds, as we've been shown by the data. So it's like you can't be in short and long-term memory at the same time. And trying to be in both is going to overload people and create some potentially insane levels of cognitive dissonance. So this is where, in having learned as much as I did about the brain and then learning about media, that's what makes me realize, like, oh yeah, one person dying is almost always going to be more impactful than any more than one person dying, any number more than one. Once you start to go past one, the desensitization almost immediately starts to set in, almost immediately, let alone like when you're on the 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th, which is why horror movies.
Yeah, it doesn't take that much. It doesn't really take that much to reach like trauma-inducing levels of death, for desensitization to occur.
Self-preserving desensitization. Because again, if every death was subsequently as impactful as the first one, then it would be like a almost logarithmic sense of, I don't even know how one would experience a sense of grief. Like,
oh, it'd be like it would be crushing grief. It would kill people.
Right. It would probably just straight up start giving people heart attacks.
Our brains probably have some like, threshold where it's like, oh, time to dump a bunch of dopamine, guys. We can't handle this shit.
Start thinking about puppies. Remember those puppies?
Remember the puppies.
What puppies? Just puppies.
Just any puppies.
Any puppies right now. You need to think about puppies. And you're like, but no, don't, whatever you were just doing, focus. And I see people like wanting to engage in recreational trauma because they've become so desensitized to it. And it's like,
Whoa, trauma tourism?
I mean, that's what Americans engage in, absolutely. But I think there's this dragon that people chase where they want to feel empathy again, but then they'll find something to like
Oh, it's known
make
as dark.
themselves be devoid of empathy about whatever it is, which is where like I saw the way that the discussion about the kids dying in the floods was going down, and I'm like, first off, fuck all these news companies for running advertisements around those types of stories. That story, obviously, they shouldn't be running ads before or after, but just running ads around those types of stories. Like, I've started to, if I'm reading CNN, I'll like, I'll encounter stories that are tragic and I'll click on them and it'll like the paywall will come up and then I'll go for the record, if it's a non-subscription paywall story for CNN, incognito mode lets you through. Same thing for Fox News. If you want to read these articles for research purposes, fuck their goddamn paywalls, get around them using incognito mode. But the fact I've started reporting these stories as having problems, and I'm like, this is fucked up that you put this story behind a paywall. How dare you, as a corporation, take this story and charge someone money to see it? That's fucked up, and you are part of the problem. And so, is this type of like, it's not innocuous, it's not frivolous because those types of complaints are the only ones that capitalists listen to ultimately, when especially in tandem with them losing money. I have an ad block up and I'm getting through their paywall. Oh, they're gonna fucking pay attention. How is this motherfucking getting through a paywall? Yeah, because you worried about this one thing instead of the actual security of the site. So it's like seeing news play into these 15-second cycles in the worst possible way and exploit people's trauma cycles, exhausting their empathy and making them feel bad for being exposed to the death that they are the merchants of. These CNN is the death imagery merchant. I am not at fault if I click on something that was put into my home that is about death when they are making being a merchant of death seem so innocuous.
And then they have the balls to ask you for money to look at it.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. And so knowing,
so for a second there,
go ahead.
Did I engage in some like dark tourism because I went fishing in Galveston after
No,
a
it's not
tropical
your
storm? And then it occurred to me, it's like, no, because I didn't go there to experience the post-disaster stuff. I went there to go fishing, and fishing was good. But, like, this is a real wild rabbit hole. Like, trauma tourism, dark tourism, let's see what, damn it, just jumped down the bottom of the page. Thanatourism, tourism focused on places with death, disaster, and tragedy. This is a thing. This is voyeurism. This is like the weirdest voyeurism. Not the weirdest. It's among the weirdest voyeurism. Grief tourism. I think it's fucked up that these terms even exist. Slum tourism, visiting poverty, ghetto tourism.
Well, it's definitely a thing, excuse me, that I think when it wasn't happening in white neighborhoods, that's when nobody was concerned. And that's what has changed. And I'll say it, I think it started with East Palestine. I won't call it fucking Palestine. because these goddamn yokels want to take somebody else's name and appropriate it and fucking mispronounce it. So whenever East Palestine was had that derailment and it was like a bunch of there were poor white people, but it was mostly white people that were in danger, and the government was not only slow to act, there just really wasn't much that they could do to. You can't undo toxic material released into the atmosphere. I mean, I'm sure in some future with some much better technology they'll be able to, but now we can't. And
We're gonna
so
deploy a giant magnetic mesh, and we're gonna drag it around like a kite. Yeah, that's what we'll do. It'll just collect everything, like that's
no,
that's
there'll
what
there'll
magnets
be
do.
no other repercussions from that. That's not going to affect the birds.
Yeah, there will be no problem with having a giant magnetic mesh net that we just drag around to collect radioactive bullshit.
Oh my god! But even even poor white people don't matter in that we learned when COVID happened that the threat of something to black and brown communities was like, oh, if it's threatening these communities more, we'll just encourage it and let it happen and go along with it. And so when that happened, we were like, oh no, I don't know if it was ever a way to prevent people from doing something, but now we know for sure that's definitely not going to stop people from doing something, let alone keep them doing it more. And then we learned with COVID death that poor white people don't matter either. So if they fucking are at risk, it doesn't matter. It's still not going to be enough. So I'm I'm thinking that the only way that anything in America ever gets resolved is if billionaires' property is at risk, and sometimes that includes the people. So it's like they're trying to build the robot workforce as quickly as and as large as possible, but it's not fast enough. And then they're trying to deport and slave as much as possible, but that's not enough either.
What did the LexCorp X account say? Our owner has been unlawfully arrested or something like that.
Right? Yeah.
Our owner.
Yeah, that was not subtle.
No.
Not subtle at all. I saw the people saying that like, oh, this is clearly Israel, and oh, this is clearly about Elon, and I didn't think I was like, I wonder if it's gonna be just subtle jabs. Like, no, these are the biggest. He took out advertisements on the side of the road. These are not subtle signs or subtle jabs. These are very direct and very grandiose, direct shots at these entities, which is where, I I won't say I was ever necessarily bored by Lex Luthor, but there's been times where the character has not been used for these sorts of purposes.
I absolutely despised this Luthor. He was like, I just couldn't stand it. Whereas the Man of Steel version, or the I guess the more recent like Justice League version of Luthor, those were like, okay, fine. But this guy, oh man, I was like sitting there like grabbing the armrest of my chair, like, this motherfucker, what the fuck? Just had my blood boiling. He was fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. There's when I know that they're on to something when the person portraying the villain is doing so well that I'm just like I can't sit in my seat. I'm just ready to just like yell at the screen. Oh, I love that. I don't even know what his name. He's the guy that played the Beast in the X-Men stuff, right?
Nicholas Holt.
Yeah, that guy's great.
He's been in a lot of shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
He's an all-star.
He's fantastic.
Basically, everybody in this movie had been in a comic book movie or adaptation, except for Superman and Lois.
like
And like some of them multiples, because Alan Tudyk played number 4, and I only learned that afterwards. Um, and then the dude who played Metamorpho was Victor Zsasz in Gotham.
yeah,
So it's like, you know,
yeah, like
Eddie Gattegi was in X-Men. With it, maybe First Class, I think. Um, shit, Nathan Fillion, damn
yeah.
near every James Gunn film.
I think that this was his best contribution. Like having him be a Green Lantern, that's like right on brand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they did a good job. But again, not that Superman always has to be used for political purposes or political messages, but the character is usually stronger when it is versus it can be empty and boring if there's no real counterpart in the real world that has some sort of motivation to it. But I've also seen almost immediately the internet is nicer. I think it's funny how mean people defaulted to in general because of the internet for like the last 30 years. And I hypothesize that it's because Superman was killed off and Superman started becoming more dark in the stories for like the last 30 years that a lot of people for the last 30 years have been dickheads. Because I look at,
Oh, so that was the Superman Returns. That was the one that I was trying. I couldn't remember the name of, but it was like the real estate one, right? Who like he was going to build a freaking island out in international water. Okay,
right.
So
Brandon Routh now is that motherfucker is Superman, which he just got a bad story, a bad co-star in a pervert. Like if Kevin Spacey wasn't a pervert, he would not. I think he would have been a great actor.
He was a good Superman. I actually thought that like the scene where he's flying through the city and the glass is breaking down, he rolls over and like puts out this like wide flat eyeball heat beam or whatever, just vaporizes the glass as it falls. That was really clever. There were some really good scenes in that movie, but Kevin, like Luther building an island off the coast of North America is not a Luther level plot line. That's like that doesn't even rise to the level of Lex Luthor. That's like the most underutilized Luthor story ever.
Yeah, it was whack. That was the wackest Lex Luthor because it also the only commentary it made was comparing Clark to Jesus, which he's supposed to be
He's
Moses anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that metaphor wasn't even right. So this film taking out most of the Jesus stuff was pretty good too. I mean, I don't think there was any Jesus metaphor.
Yeah.
At all, but it was like it actively took it out. And I think what it feels like he might be doing is modifying the source material into a new story. So like we're not gonna probably do Death of Superman again. Probably not gonna see fucking Bizarro or Doomsday again. We're probably not gonna do Flashpoint again.
Oh, I hope we get a Lobo story or like a Brainiac.
Oh, we definitely
story.
are.
We better get a Lobo and a Brainiac like
he
5
cast
story.
Jason Momoa.
Jason Mimosa.
he's already cast.
He's gonna be a great Lobo.
Yeah, for
funny.
sure.
That's gonna make or break Lobo. They have to give him enough space to be funny.
Well, and it's gonna be in the Supergirl movie, opposite a drunk Supergirl, so it's clearly not gonna be for kids.
That's like
you can't make a Lobo for kids story. You know what I mean?
Lobo is not for kids ever.
Lobo is a story. It's gonna be a movie that kids are supposed to sneak and go watch when they're old enough to start sneaking and go watching movies.
Yeah.
Like it's not something the kids are supposed to watch
And
like in the
Lobo is a
theater.
character that most adults probably aren't ready for.
Right.
Like if people
Yeah.
think that they can handle Deadpool and they think that's great, they have no idea what Lobo's gonna do. Oh, it's gonna be great. And a Brainiac story. If we had a good Brainiac story,
Right. And I
oh
mean, I
man,
think we
this
will get one in learning how Brainiac wiped out Krypton, and Kara probably had to like watch and go through it, and that's why she's, a mess. But I think
that's why she hangs on.
based on the previews for Peacemaker, it feels like he's gonna do Flashpoint with Peacemaker and have Peacemaker make peace with all the multiverse bullshit, to spin a phrase. So I don't think we'll see those old. Knowing James Gunn, I feel like we're not gonna see the old stories anymore. That every time they reboot something, they're like, "Oh, we gotta tell you how Batman's parents died again. You want to see some trauma? Here's his trauma." And it's like, we don't need to see Bruce and Martha die again in the alley again. No, we don't need to see that shit. We don't need to see Superman die and four people try to fill his boots again. We don't need to see. So, in seeing all of the comic book stories
I want to see
that have
Superman
been
go
written,
to a planet that circles a red sun and get drunk. That's what I want to see. I want to see Superman just get trashed and act like an idiot. I realize that's only like a 10-minute vignette, but I'd like to see that.
I mean, I thought the Superman story where he was trapped on a space station with no sun and he was losing power and had to fight the xenomorphs. I thought that was a well designed
Yeah,
story.
that's a good story.
So I'm like, but also the issue is James Gunn is only interested in underpowered Superman stories. I don't think we're gonna have a problem there, so much as I don't know what the audience is is looking for in general, but it seems like they're looking for color and they're looking for stories that are fun and interesting, and sometimes they may make some social commentary. Like I don't think people went for social commentary, but the fact that the social commentary was in it made people keep going back, whereas not having that in the Justice League nor the Snyderverse, like
Justice League.
neither one was really worthy of going back, because it's like I love the Snyder uh Justice League final cut, but I think I only watched it once because it was exhausting, and then it was like I don't feel like I really need to revisit anything in it because it was nothing.
Well, they made a
Too
marathon
deep.
instead of having a bunch of circuits. Whereas, like MCU, they've got that whole like Disney magic where they know it's like, hey, if we do too much of this all at once, we're gonna fry people. But if we only give them enough, they'll keep coming back. And I think that the Snyder cut was just like it was the story we wanted. It had all the details we wanted. It was really good, but it's also like, I mean, it's just long, just really long. I couldn't. I don't like watching the extended cuts of Lord of the Rings entries because they're already long enough.
I mean, I think this goes back to the original framing of like I don't think it matters how long something is if it doesn't drag or
Yeah.
waste
Well, I think
time.
that's the thing
You
is
know,
like the ones that are broken up in and can manage like a 12-hour story, and keep it watchable or rewatchable. That's because the pacing is right, and then they break it up at the right spots. But I think the dilemma with the Snyder cut is that it's just for what it is. They didn't break it up because there wasn't a good place to break it up. It's like it's a contained story, and that's the thing is that it has so much information that the first time we got a version of it, it was crap because it left out everything we needed. And then the full version is so long that like replay value is low.
Well, and Zack Snyder wastes too much time on slow mo.
Yeah.
When you realize that, then you're like, fuck, I got like 17 minutes of a movie in 2 hours because everything was slowed down.
They did the Dragon Ball Z effect where like,
Yeah.
they've got like 30 seconds of fight, but they stretch it out over across like 3 episodes.
Yep. Yep. And so, this going back and forth between being the audience and then trying to make these things or like create something within part of these things, it always makes me more empathetic to the creator, which that seems like the obvious outcome, but it's also where that's when I do want to know if they use AI or if they like made shortcuts. And then that's when it looks like somebody tried to do a shortcut. That's when that it goes like in the exact opposite direction. And so that's why I think there's this impetus right now of people who are having like an overly negative reaction. What would seem to be an overly negative reaction to what is not bad, but what is mediocre artificially created music. And that's why I think like that's what I would think as to why you're getting that reaction from AI music. But I think other people are getting that reaction too. But I think it's much deeper in that we've been desensitized to both ends of the extreme, and then by proxy, like we're hypersensitive to the middle. And so when somebody's like super mid, it's almost like it bothers it's almost like it bothers people, and they have to decide, is this person good looking? Are they bad looking? Are they good at this thing? Or are they bad at that thing? And like being super mid is like the most unsettling thing. I
still give it a chance. I still listen to stuff that has been identified as AI generated. I just keep having a similar reaction. It's like, well, this just doesn't sound natural yet. It doesn't sound. It's close. It's real close. If you didn't know better, you might be fooled. But I think that's the part that bothers me. It still feels like I'm being lied to. It's really the guitars that bothered me the most, and it's probably because I've spent most of my life studying the instrument. Like that's not a real guitar sound. Mm-hmm. That doesn't come from any kind of like hand motion. Like where did that even come from? or like, and it's not an issue of like, effects are cool. I love effects. There's a bunch of really cool effects that do great stuff, like essentially generate pads from incoming note data or frequency information. And that stuff usually, like, it makes sense tonally. But when you hear stuff that doesn't make sense tonally, and it's just kind of, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too picky. Maybe I should just enjoy the fact that it's getting so close that I'm now what I'm hearing, instead of like stuff being out of tune or completely the wrong like genre idiosyncrasies. What I'm hearing is artifacts, like stuff like electroacoustic artifacts too, like stuff that's like that happens like once it gets into the board, or sometimes it's stuff that would happen between the room and the microphone, but mostly it's like weird processing artifacts that don't sound right. And so that's just me being hypercritical.
Well, I don't think people give things time because everybody feels like we have this impending rush, because I feel like when we're talking about guitars and you say you're being too picky, you got to sit on that. Dude, not you, but one has to sit on that pause.
Guitar, like I actually have to remember
that's a great pun.
Yeah,
it's a great ass pun, bro. Like that's what I'm saying. We got to sit on that. That's a great pun. You're being picky about a guitar. Fucking that's actually hilarious. But we don't have time to sit on these goddamn moments and be like, no, that's a great pun right there. Like, come on. And so it's like, again, there's this never ending relentless pressure to keep moving on and also capturing the novel. Meanwhile, we're in we're in the novel constantly, but it only you have to like stop and absorb it to know when you're in it. And that's the paradox of novelty and being like the what I finally understood about the happenings after going to raves and then learning about the happenings later and then getting older and seeing parties that were chasing a dragon of what we were experiencing in our youth, trying to get that feeling but not even knowing where that feeling was coming from. I think there's all these things that come together to be that feeling that we all then start to chase and then want to achieve nostalgia with, but it's always fleeting and it's always ephemeral, but it always comes from enjoying the moment. And that's the one thing that, like, when you're on drugs or at a party at like 2 a.m, there's always a moment where you can become so exhausted that your nagging brain finally stops and you can enjoy the moment. And that's what people are chasing, is that it's like, it's not a specific song, it's not a specific mix, it's not a specific group of people, but it's those moments where the nagging brain finally lets up and they can enjoy themselves, and they fucking attach so much joy to that moment that they think it's one thing or the other, or it's the building, or it's the DJ, or it's the song. But again, it's like, I've been there so many times now, and part of it's the flow state, that it's like I can deconstruct and put these things back together to know that dragon that I'll never achieve again, because I'm not chasing it, because it was always this ephemeral thing that but I finally get it now. And so I'm not chasing it. And so again, I think that's part of why, like, that AI music will never cause that feeling, like, anywhere.
Exceptional